And there's the pain face. Hey, Zack Henderson here, and today I'm breaking down Matt Vincent's Turkish getup as demonstrated on this video from Onnit, which is a top YouTube search result for beginner kettlebell workout. Now, before we get into the video, please understand I am not throwing shade at Matt. I've followed him since the Highland Game days. He's an amazing athlete and really an inspiring guy. Quite simply, he demonstrated a few technical faults that I see all the time. So I figured this would be a good teaching and learning opportunity. So with all that said, let's take a look. So right off the bat, he skips the floor press setup where we typically like to have the elbow planted to the ground and the forearm vertical. Instead, he's starting in something like a rack position that you'd see at the top of a clean. And this is bad news because as soon as he presses, that kettlebell and the entire arm rotates inward. So instead of the bell being aligned over the outside of the shoulder with a tightened lat, it's actually hovering over his face. As he goes to roll up, you can see the arm rotates even further in. Now, Matt can easily handle this weight, but as we'll talk about throughout this video, if this was a new lifter, he'd lose that bell forward and totally wrench his shoulder. Another common error is excessive wrist extension with the knuckles being pushed back. Matt's not too bad right here, but it just adds more risk to the kettlebell twisting you off proper alignment. The sweep into a solid 4-point stance is an issue for just about everyone, and here's why. You see Matt is kind of trying to align his legs parallel, which, because the lunge is coming up, you'd think that would be a good idea, but this is actually skipping a crucial step. Ideally, his back foot would point more towards the camera so the bottom hand, knee, and foot form a straight line. And this allows you to hinge the hip and safely unload the bottom hand. But without that step, Matt has to side bend the kettlebell up in this awkward position. And there's the pain face. At this moment, his entire foundation is shaky. The front foot is out too far. He's tap dancing with the bottom hand. That hamstring is going crazy. I'd imagine that knee doesn't feel so good, and the back foot is collapsed. Now he's looking up like, how am I going to get out of this? But he does because he's a super strong dude. Now check out how that internally rotated arm looks at the overhead lockout. It's twisting, twisting, twisting. Now Matt obviously feels that, so he brings the arm back to neutral, but at this point, the wrist is really collapsed back. Not good for the wrist and not great for control of the kettlebell. So now we're coming down. Again, if Matt wasn't so strong, the kettlebell would have crash landed onto his head right there. Coming back down to the 4-point stance, I like to simply step the front leg out to open the hip and hinge back to find the ground. But Matt's going for that side bend again. Now he sees, whoa, that's a long way down. And because he doesn't fully open the hip angle as he sweeps the leg out, he has to come way up on the toes, and blammo, he is ready to be done. We see this a lot of times. Rather than tracing your steps all the way back to the floor, people just straighten their legs and collapse down. This is not exactly landing with a lot of control. The arm is coming down, the feet are popping up, and that does it for the first rep. Now we're doing a rep without weight. Probably a good idea. This leg pop on the roll up probably means he's crunching straight up more than rolling diagonally out towards the side. We're going to see that same side bend. Now watch, even without weight, that reach puts him in a bad place, and you can tell because as soon as his hand hits the floor, his knee pops up. The angle there is so awkward, you can't have them both on the ground at the same time. And one point of safety, make sure you know where you have any kettlebells lying around. I've definitely seen people bang their noggin coming down from a get-up, so just be aware of your surroundings. Okay, one more rep to go, back with the kettlebell. I like to see a fully locked out floor press before any torso movement because it really gives you the time to fully engage the lat. As Matt rolls up, the shoulder shrugs up more and more, and that can be largely prevented with, again, more lats. As Matt comes up to the high post, we'd like to see the elbow straight and shoulder pulled back to effectively load that arm for the bridge. But because there's slack in the system here, we're going to see that leg and arm shifting around as they try to counterbalance each other. We go to the sweep, and his leg position is a bit better here. And actually, so is his grip. So you see the wrist is much straighter than it was before. Coming down, again, you'll see the bell slip inwards and the arm drift forward. And we've talked about that 4-point stance enough at this point. Again, we'd like to see him roll back down at a controlled diagonal and get flat before putting the kettlebell down. Okay, so closing thoughts. Yes, I'm really nitpicking here, but I teach the Turkish get-up in such a way where every step is like its own little exercise with specific forms, cues, and points of safety to really get the most out of each and every position. Now, granted, I'm a kettlebell nerd, and my style is not for everybody. But if you're going to do an exercise like the Turkish get-up with a hunk of iron perched over your head, you better make sure that you're strong, stable, and safe at every point along the way. Now, if you want a deep dive on how I coach the Turkish get-up, check out my step-by-step tutorial video linked below. And that does it for today. I hope you got something out of the video. Again, Matt's a super strong athlete, and these are just some little things that I think when we take some extra time to look at can really benefit our practice, help us get stronger and stay safe along the way, which is what this training stuff is all about. So again, appreciate you watching. Be sure to drop a comment below if you learned something, and wishing you all the best in your training. We'll see you in the next video.